Hi, I'm Robert Jeffrey, and today I'm going to talk to you about the use of technology in the classroom. For this presentation, I read several scholarly articles and interviewed my host teacher, Mrs. Amanda Camargo from Colony Middle School in Palmer, Alaska, as well as two students from Conneaut, Ohio, 7th grader Bella Porter and her brother, 11th grader Steve Porter, who also happen to be my niece and nephew. My interviews were built around the same questions, though the conversations played out differently with each person. Steve will be a junior in high school this year in Ohio. He has a little bit of a nonchalant attitude when it comes to school and doesn't really take any enjoyment from his academic career. However, he also doesn't hate or resent school either. He just accepts it as a necessary part of life. Now, Steve had to have answers drawn out of him. He doesn't open up very easily. Although, as I remember my high school days, most students tend to have a similar attitude when being asked a series of questions by an adult. Now, as this whole topic is about technology in the classroom, I felt I had to start out with asking about the technology his teachers used. He said, "My teachers mostly used calculators, computers, Excel, and PowerPoint in class." Seemed kind of a basic list, but I can see how it would be used. When asked about technologies, either hardware or software that any of his teachers may have tried to use unsuccessfully, he said, "My ninth grade teacher tried to use Khan Academy and Pearson in the classroom, but they are too difficult for ninth graders to use on their own." Now, his mother, who was in there with us doing the interview, agreed to that statement, and she emphasized that programs that are selected by teachers used really need to be age appropriate as far as being able to use on their own if they expect to be used at home and not just in the classroom. When asked about what he felt was the most effective use of technology in the classroom that he could remember, he said Delta Math was probably the most effective example of technology that any of his teachers used. Now, I've never heard of Delta Math, so I had to look it up. As it turns out, it's a website created by teachers used to assist in educating many students in the subject of math. As of this point, according to the website, it is being used by over 100,000 teachers and more than 4 million students. Now, Bella has started the 7th grade this year, and she also lives in Ohio. She was asked the same questions as her older brother, but she was much more open with her answers, and our conversation was a bit easier. Her list of technologies used in class was a bit longer than her brother's. She said, "My teachers use projectors, iPads, computers, flat screen TVs, Math Playground, and Kahoot in the classroom." Now, the difference in the list made me wonder if there was more focus on using technology in elementary schools than there was in high schools. Or was it simply that her brother didn't care about discussing school and gave less complete answers? Either way, only additional research would actually answer that question. Now, when I asked her about her favorite experience with technology in the classroom, Bella said, "I really like using the iPads at my school for research and for Math Playground." Now, I couldn't remember ever hearing of Math Playground, so I had to look it up. It turns out it's a game site that helps teach math. Then my daughter chimed in and said I was silly and reminded me that she uses Math Playground here in Alaska as well. When asked what she thought was the most effective use of technology in her classroom, Bella said, "Using the iPad for research is probably the best use of technology I can think of so far." Though her mother thinks it has more to do with the use of the iPad than it does with doing research online, which she could also do from the Chromebook or the family's computer. As I mentioned before, I was also able to interview my host teacher, Mrs. Amanda Camargo. I used the same questions with her as I did my niece and nephew, though I did modify the questions to ask about teaching with technology as opposed to learning with technology. Again, I began by asking about what types of technology she uses in the classroom. Her answer was forms of technology that are utilized in the classroom include the use of the Promethean board, Active Inspire software program, and Chromebooks, which are issued to students at the beginning of the school year. Software-wise, we utilize Google, Google Classroom, Zoom, Flipcharts, Kahoot, etc. I then asked her about unsuccessful attempts to use technology. She couldn't recall any. However, she did emphasize that there was a steep learning curve for many teachers during the COVID pandemic, as they were forced to learn how to use multiple programs quickly in order to continue teaching their students via a virtual classroom for the first time. She said with the COVID pandemic, there was quite a learning curve in technology and the variety of programs available to teach remotely. Even programs they had already used had to be reimagined for use when the teacher could no longer step over to a desk and point out an issue or fix a technical issue with the computer they were using. She felt that students most liked to use smart devices such as iPhones or iPads, but these were privately owned devices, not school-owned or monitored. She has some issues with using these devices, which I'll discuss in a few minutes on a later slide. I then asked her about a form of technology she wished she had in the classroom. She said, if given the opportunity, I would like to utilize a form of technology that does not require me to be at the front of the classroom during presentations or lectures and still maintain control of the screen slide transitions. It is so beneficial to walk the classroom during discussions. It promotes more student engagement and uses proximity to keep the class on task. I had a later thought that we have remote controls that are usable with computers for presentations, but I didn't think of this at the time during the interview and was unable to ask her about this. It may be a simple case of they aren't using a computer that has that capability, or it needs an upgrade, or something to that effect that's preventing that from happening. But the point is that she doesn't have that ability at this time, and she would like it. I finished off my interview with Mrs. Camargo by asking her if she had any advice or warnings for future teachers like us. This was a response. I tend to be old school when it comes to my classroom. Technology is great until it isn't. Handwriting, paper, and pencil is becoming lost in the age of technology. Most students cannot read nor write in cursive. Handwriting and language usage are also poor due to the use of voice to technology and autocorrect in text language. It makes teaching interesting. I would advise a healthy blend of both. I utilize computers for work that cannot be finished in class and large multi-slide projects. And in class, there is more hands-on learning with paper, pencil, interactive notebooks, and group work. That hands-on portion of teaching cannot be lost to the age of technology. Now, I said I researched some scholarly articles, and I did notice three themes common between all of them with usage of technology in the classroom. First was that teachers tend to agree that the use of technology in learning today is absolutely essential. Second, as time moves forward, so too does technology. As a result, many new programs are developed every year, and new hardware is designed and marketed to run these programs on. And third, social media can be harnessed as both a teaching tool and a communications tool between teachers and students, teachers and parents, and in the classroom and the community. Now, I know I just said that the general consensus is that social media can be a teaching tool. However, it also has inherent risk factors that must be weighed. In most cases, social media, especially on privately devices, cannot be monitored or restricted effectively by teachers or schools. Even internet filters that block things like pornography don't have an effect on social media outlets like Facebook or Instagram. While those sites have their own rules and restrictions regarding content, those rules are designed for mature adults, not children. So many words, sounds, images, and videos that are not appropriate for children are still accessible by students. Additionally, and equally harmful, if not more so, are the risks of cyberbullying, identity theft, disclosures of private information, either intentional or unintentional, and the ability to use social media as a tool by child predators. Mrs. Camargo alluded to this during our interview. She says students utilize their Chromebooks consistently in class, but I feel there is a strong preference for smart devices, which needs to be constantly monitored as students find ways to interact through these devices without teacher knowledge and get off task. It also opens this doorway for inappropriate conversations and bullying, among other things. Other concerns I found to be in common in my research was the lack of teacher training in the use of technologies in education and how to integrate them in teaching pedagogies. Additionally, many schools have issues providing access to technology to their students, usually due to funding for technology and the needed infrastructure upgrades to implement those technologies. Finally, there are many resources that can be found online that students can use to cheat. For example, Steve was caught by his parents using Quizlet to answer his homework questions. Teachers must be aware of this capability and develop curriculum and technology usage that eliminates or minimizes these nefarious uses of technology by their students. So, what have we learned? Well, first off, technology is both essential for learning in today's classrooms, and it is a method of instruction that is preferred by both students and teachers. Additionally, teachers should receive more training in technologies and the capabilities of those technologies for classroom usage than they have in the past. Finally, inherent risks exist in the usage of technologies, and they must be weighed and mitigated to the greatest extent possible when they are used in the classroom. And these are the scholarly articles that I used in researching this topic.